Hello guys, Mackie here, and I am here with quite a long video. Well, well, I'm expecting it to be quite a long time, maybe half an hour. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But basically, I'm going to be just discussing what happened in the Formula 1 2012 season, and as it is the last day of 2012 today. So here I've got a website and I can see everything that happened, and I'll be explaining kind of what happened in each race and things like that. So we go to Australia, the first race, and basically what happened was the Red Bulls, I mean, they weren't bad, they weren't as dominant as they were in 2011, and the Ferraris were just, oh my god, the Ferraris were just awful. They were, wow, they were pretty bad. And one was the McLarens. They were just so fast, it was ridiculous. Jenson Button getting the win after starting second with Lewis Hamilton on pole, and Jenson Button overtook into the first corner. And I remember Jenson Button's race was like the radio after the race. They always say something, and what he said was, "The car's beautiful and she's fast." And if only that was to be throughout the rest of the season. And I mean, Vettel did finish second, but you know, he really wasn't that dominant at all. And one thing that might surprise you is that going into the second race in Malaysia, all of a sudden, right, from what happened in Australia, the Ferraris being nowhere, Jenson Button winning, all of a sudden Alonso in his Ferrari wins, right? From the rubbish that happened to them in Melbourne was ridiculous. And guess who comes second? Sergio Perez. I mean, what, the Sauber was, it wasn't bad in 2011, just wasn't good, and he finished second. It's just unbelievable. I mean, Jenson Button, who won, finished 14th. 14th. I mean, that I know there was rain and all that, but that weekend just turned right on his head. And then we moved to China, and yet again, it is completely confusing, because all of a sudden the Ferraris are nowhere. Alonso is the highest Ferrari, he finished 9th, and then guess who wins? Nico Rosberg. I do not understand that. The Mercedes were nowhere in the first two races. All of a sudden they get a race win, and Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton second, and McLaren's probably did have the fastest car. But then all of a sudden the Red Bulls are 4th and 5th, and the Lotuses are dropping down after getting decent positions in the first 3 races. And then we go to Bahrain, and the McLarens finish 8th and 18th, and the Saubers finish 11th and 13th, and the Ferraris finish 7th and 9th, and Mercedes finished 5th. So it is just confusing. There's no standing out person, and Vettel comes first, then it's Raikkonen, then it's Grosjean. It just confused. This was such an interesting part of the season, because I mean, up until I think it was the European Grand Prix, which is the 8th race, we had no idea, absolutely no idea who was going to win, because no one actually stood out. And then we move on to Spain, where Hamilton, he actually did pretty well. I mean, he finished 8th in the end after starting from the back of the grid, because in qualifying he ran out of fuel, so he qualified on pole. Then by the time before he could get back round to the pits, he stopped because he had no fuel left, and then he has to start from the back of the grid because he's disqualified. So guess who starts on pole? Pastor Maldonado in the Williams. The Williams have been absolutely nowhere. Like, literally, their numbers were 18 and 19 in 2012. I mean, they were literally just above the 3 new teams. So that is how bad they were in 2011. And all of a sudden, they come out and he gets a pole and a race win. And once again, the Ferrari's up there. Alonso finished 2nd, Raikkonen 3rd, Grosjean 4th. So the Lotuses are up there as well. I mean, and then all of a sudden, the Red Bulls are nowhere. The McLarens are nowhere. The Saubers are nowhere. The Mercedes are nowhere. So we just have absolutely no idea. It's just each race was so different. They move on to race number 6, and this is at Monaco. And oh yeah, also at what I mentioned here is in Spain, what happened was Michael Schumacher ran into the back of Bruno Senna, and he got a 10-place grid penalty for that. So going into Monaco, he qualified on pole, and he's called the Master of Monaco because of how good he is at that track, and also purely because he's won there. I don't know how many times, but he's won there quite a few times. So he qualified on pole, and then had a 10-place grid penalty, and had to finish. Start 11th. Then going down to the first corner, right in Monaco, it's such a small track, and somehow Grosjean managed to do a 180 without hitting anyone. Well, he hit someone and did a 180, but when he was doing the 180, he didn't hit anyone somehow. Kobayashi launches, well not launches, but I can't remember who it was, but he hits someone, and his car comes literally a foot off the ground, and Mark Webber wins that race. And all of a sudden, Nico Rosberg finishes 2nd again. The Mercedes are back, and obviously Schumacher would have done better, but he I can't remember who finished that race. Could have been 7th, I don't know. But he would have done better if he did qualify on pole. Then look who's there again, Fernando Alonso. I mean, he just kept on getting points, and then Vettel behind him, and then Lewis behind him. So basically, again, the Lotuses were nowhere. Grosjean didn't finish, and Raikkonen was 9th. So it's just, oh yeah, also Perez finished 11th, and Button was 6th. And so there was no consistently good car at the moment, apart from the Ferraris. Ferraris didn't have the fastest car, but they had the most consistent at this stage of the season. Moving on to Canada, where by this time we'd had 6 winners from six different winners from 6 different races, and up until Monaco it was 5 different drivers from 5 different teams, but now we're on 6 different drivers, 6 different races, and the Ferrari looked really good. And what happened was he just stayed on his tires too long. They just went, and Lewis was really bold. What he did was he got, I can't remember how many seconds ahead, probably 5 to 10 seconds ahead of everyone. And then Vettel and Alonso was, I think Vettel was at first at that time, and Alonso behind him. And then he was on the I think he was on the yellow prime tires, and then he switched onto the red options, I think. Might be the other way around. And so he went behind them, and he knew that the others, Vettel and Alonso, would try and go to the end. So he took the gamble, and he actually went behind them, caught them up, and overtook them and came to win the race, which is really good. And then Grosjean up there again, Perez getting third. But what Perez did, Perez is so good at looking after his tyres. I can't remember whether he did a one-stop that race. I think he might have done a one-stop, which is what Vettel and Alonso were trying to do. I can't actually remember. That's kind of annoying, because that was a good race. Although that race was completely different from the 2011 race. In the 2011 race, it was like something like 4 or 5 hours long the race was, because there was safety cars, there was torrential rain, they had to stop the race for 2 hours, and oh god, it was just insane, that race. But also, guess who's there again? Alonso getting 5th place. He's picking up those points very consistently. And then we move on to Europe, which was a different race again, because for once there wasn't a driver or anything which stood out. And this is in Valencia, and what happened was Sebastian Vettel, he just flies off, gets like a 20-second lead or something, and then he has an alternator failure, so his car literally just stops, and then Lewis is in the lead, and I can't actually remember what happened to him, but at the end of the race, Maldonado's going around the outside of him into the chicane, and Maldonado just wouldn't give up and hit him, and then Lewis went into the wall, who was angry and all that. And then Pastor Maldonado, who won the race in Spain, can now not really do anything, to be honest. So then Alonso wins the race, and he's the first double winner of the season. So it's now 7 drivers in 8 races. And you know, if we look at what he's done, he's gone 5th, 1st, 9th, 7th, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 1st. So by stage, so he has had 1, 2, 3, 4 podiums by this stage, and 4 other races which he has got okay points in. So you know, he's picking up point after point after point, and this is what really helped him out. And then look who's second, the Lotus of Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen, what happened in Bahrain was the reason why Vettel won, he came second, was because they're going down to the first corner, and Kimi goes out, and then he's like, he's not really passing, but he didn't really brake late, because what he must have thought was it cause? Actually no, it's not cause versus consequences, something like that. But it's him knowing that he hasn't got the best car. So if he took that position and he crashed out, he knew that he would lose a good 25 or 18 points possible. He wouldn't get any points that race, and he knows, because he hasn't got the best car, he needs to be consistent. So that is probably why he didn't take it. And then in 3rd, Michael Schumacher. I mean, in his second career from 2010 to then, I think he had only had 1 podium. I think 1 other podium. So it's just, I really don't understand. I don't understand how that happened, but the Mercedes obviously had a good car, they just weren't getting the results. And then I mean, the McLarens, I mean, where's Jenson Button? I mean, he finished 8th. I mean, they have the fastest car, but they just kept on having these problems. I have no idea what it was. They just kept on having these problems. And I mean, look, sneaking up there, Nico Hülkenberg in the Force India getting 5th. Paul di Resta in the Force India as well, getting 7th. So the, Force Indias, they didn't do a bad job. And then we go to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and it chucked it down all weekend until the race when it was dry. And I mean, it was an interesting race. I mean, I think Alonso started on pole, maybe, I don't know, can't actually remember, but Alonso was in first, and then it was Webber, and then I mean, it was a relatively boring race, but what happened at the end was Webber knew he wasn't going to get, he was only going to get 1, maybe 2 chances, because Alonso isn't one of these people that will make a mistake. You're not going to get half a second there, a tenth there, so that you can be that bit closer. Webber knew if he got one on tune, he's going to have to take it. So he went round the outside, after the DRS zone, he went round the outside of the left-hander, which was pretty good overtaking move. And I mean, Massa gets 4th, which is pretty good considering the first part of his season has been pretty miserable. And then the Lotuses, 5th and 6th, they are very consistent. And then, but look, the McLarens, 8th and 10th, they are nowhere. And look, Hülkenberg and di Resta didn't finish, sorry, but Hülkenberg came 12th, and no car was consistent. The only consistent car was the Lotuses and the Ferraris, but they didn't have the outright fastest car. So, well, I mean, in Bahrain, Kimi and Grosjean probably, I mean, they kept Kimi behind Grosjean too long. I think that was the problem. But then we move on to Hockenheim, and the qualifying was wet, and the Ferrari somehow gets pole position, and it's a dry race, and then Alonso goes on to win, and then McLaren finally they get another good result, 2nd, Kimi 3rd. I mean, but look, Vettel, he got 5th. There's no consistency, because look here, Lewis didn't finish. No. Wait, did he finish? No, he didn't finish. Lewis didn't finish. Grosjean came 18th. Maldonado, the winner of the Spanish Grand Prix, came 15th. Massa, who just got a 4th or 5th, came 12th. Up until this point, and I think maybe in the next couple of races, there is no consistency of results, except the Ferraris and the Lotuses being up there. But they're up there, but I mean, at the end of the season, it kind of changes a bit. But yeah, anyway, then we go to Hungary, and we get halfway through the season, and we go to Hungary after, I think, was this after the break? The summer break? No, this was before the summer break, and the McLarens looked good. I mean, Lewis wins, and then look, the Lotuses, 2nd and 3rd, they are up there every time, and then Vettel 4th, Alonso 6th, Button 7th, no, Button 6th, sorry. So, it's starting to get a bit more repetitive now who is up the top. And then we get to Belgium. Wow, Belgium was a... Vettel got let off the hook. He had a dismal qualifying. I can't remember, but I think he was down... He was right down in near 10th. Is around the 10 place mark. And going into the first corner, Grosjean cuts in front of Hamilton. Hamilton rides up the back of him. Grosjean launches literally, I'd say, 2 to 3 inches in front of Alonso's head, because the first corner is like practically a 270 degree right-hander. It's like full lock. and as Alonso's turning, Grosjean just comes poof in front of him. Oh crap! I actually thought Alonso was gonna die because I mean I've seen it replayed about I'm not joking, about 1,000 times. I've watched it over and over and over again, and every time I'm just thinking, fuck, because Alonso turns in and this Lotus just goes poof, literally just literally get a huge thing, right, and like make it come across your face really quick at like 100 miles an hour. It is fucking scary, I tell you. I mean, Jenson Button, that was his first pole for McLaren, and that was his third season with them. So it's been a long time coming. And then Vettel, he's let off the hook because he gets second. Maldonado did a jump start. You know, Kobayashi started second. I mean, it was a really mucked up grid. And then again, the Lotus of Kimi comes third. And then it's, I mean, the Force Indias, I mean, they came 8th and 9th. I don't think they got any points since Malaysian. Yeah, they haven't got any points since Malaysian and Australia by this point. So yeah. And then, I mean, we move on to Italy, and after Lewis being smashed out in the first corner of Belgium, he actually goes on to win the race. And guess who comes second? Sergio Perez. He was on fire, I am telling you. He did so good. It was ridiculous. He just kept on setting fastest sector after fastest sector, personal best. It was just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He was just so quick, but he couldn't catch Hamilton. And again, the two Ferraris come third and fourth. It's pretty ridiculous how the Ferraris are just so consistent. I mean, not as much Felipe, but Fernando definitely. And again, the Lotus there in fifth, and then the two Mercedes. So we're starting to now get an idea of who is becoming more and more consistent. I mean, it says Mark finishes 20th, but he had to retire because coming out of, wow, I can't remember what that corner's called, but you go on the back straight when you go underneath the bridge, and then go down 3 gears, and you do the left, and then you go right and left again, and they always go out really wide just before you get to Parabolica. That straight, as soon as he came out of the left one, his back end just went, and he slid for about 20 meters sideways, and his tires just had the biggest flat spots you would ever see. So he just came in and retired, and Vettel had to stop the car because they had to save the engine for some problem again. So it was quite an interesting race. And then after Vettel having quite a few problems, we move on to Singapore, where Hamilton dominated the race, and then he just lost drive. I mean, he came down to the first corner, and then going into the second one, he tried to shift up, and it wouldn't work. And he's literally just spamming the paddle to get it up, and then he has to retire. And by this point, he's starting to think, you know, I should probably leave McLaren, because he's had a third this season. By this point, he's had a third, an 8th, an 8th, a 5th, a 1st, and a 19th. But that he actually retired. 8th, non-finish, 1st, non-finish, 1st. So he's already had 3 wins, but the consistency: 3 wins, 3 8ths, 3 3rds by this point, and then a 5th, a 19th, and a non-finish, 2 non-finishes. So it is so inconsistent. But yeah, Lewis loves Singapore, but his car let him down again. And guess who wins? Vettel. Oh my god. How does Vettel do it? I don't know how Vettel does it. He just pops up in the right place at the right time. And then McLaren, Jenson Button third, second, Alonso third. Then Paul di Resta in the Force India comes fourth. And then again, the two Lotuses, 6th and 7th. They're very, very consistent. Then we move on to Japan. Probably not my favourite race, but one of my favourite races. And Vettel wins again. And then Massa, he starts doing really well second half of the season. And he gets second, and then Kobayashi gets third. But that was, I mean, he's the only Japanese driver, and he's been the only Japanese driver since Takuma Sato, and he probably left Formula 1 in like 2006 maybe. And they rarely have Japanese drivers, and he got third, and he was on the podium as if he just won, and everyone in the car was just going Kamui, Kamui, and that gave me shivers down my spine, because that was so fascinating. That's the only word I'm going to say. And then, I mean, the McLaren's 4th and 5th, and then Kimi in the Lotus getting 6th, and then again the Force India 7th. So, oh yeah, and Maldonado 8th, and I think they were his they're his first points since his win in Spain. So he's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's his 10th race. So he had 9 races without not getting any points. So you could say it was kind of fluky. And then we move on to Korea, and for the 3rd race in a row, Vettel wins. This lasts from Singapore to the end. That made him win the title, because as you'll see in the next race what happens, I mean, it's just ridiculous. But then Mark gets 2nd, very dominant performance from the Red Bulls. So the Red Bulls, they brought some updates to Singapore, and it was worked a treat. And then again, the Ferrari of Fernando Alonso getting 3rd, and then the other Ferrari in 4th, and then the Lotus, then the Force Indian Lotus, and then the 2 Toro Rossos. So the McLarens weren't even in the points, were they? Oh no, Lewis got 1 point. But, oh yeah, because Button got crashed out, because I think it was going into the first corner. Then was Kobayashi came and hit his front wheel, and you know, when your front wheel's knocked off, you can't do anything about that. But then going to the India, for the 4th race in a row, Vettel wins. 100 points out of a possible 100 points. You cannot argue with that. You cannot argue with that. He is a good driver, but he is in a good team. And when I finish, I will then discuss things about drivers and whatnot. And Ferrari of Alonso comes 2nd, then the Red Bull of Mark Webber, McLaren Hamilton, McLaren Button, Ferrari Massa, Lotus Raikkonen, so the Force India of Hulkenberg. So we're starting to get an idea of who's the best. So obviously, next season, if it's roughly the same, it's going to be the Red Bulls, Ferraris, McLarens, Lotus and Force Indias that are going to be up there. From what we've seen in 2012, but obviously that isn't going to, that might not make sense. Then we move on to the third to last race, and it's Abu Dhabi. Lewis Hamilton, again his car fails on him. Sebastian Vettel gets 3rd. He started from the pit lane, which means not only is he last, he cannot leave the pit lane until every single car has passed the first corner. So by the time everyone gets to like the 3rd or 4th or 5th corner, you know, he's only on the 2nd or 3rd. So he oh my god, 2 safety cars, and there's so many non-finishes that race. Grosjean, Hamilton, Rosberg, Webber, Hulkenberg, and I think a couple of the Saubers. I know the Saubers both finished, but you know, so many people didn't finish. It all went in Vettel's favour. And guess who won? Kimi Raikkonen. I told my parents before the season he would win a race, and he did. He dominated it. And then Alonso behind him, then Vettel, Button, Maldonado, Kobayashi, Massa, Senna, Di Resta, Ricciardo. And then Michael Schumacher, after getting non-finished 10th, non-finished 10th, non-finished, non-finished, non-finished 3rd, 7th, 7th, non-finished 7th, 6th, non-finished 11th, 13th, 22nd, 11th, you know, it was the right time for him to leave. He wasn't getting the same amount of points as he should. And then, I mean, now moving on to the US Grand Prix. Hamilton, right, let me just have a look. Okay, so Hamilton, he might have been able to win it. Germany, don't know, he might have been able to win. So there's basically 2 possible wins. That's 50 points. I have to have a look at the end to see how many points Hamilton was behind. Does it show you here? So I'm looking on this website to find out all the results. Okay, where did Hamilton finish? Hamilton finished... Yeah, Hamilton would have been 3rd in the championship if he got those 2 definite wins in Abu Dhabi and Singapore. I mean, he could have so easily won more races, but the car let him down. But so he comes and wins at Austin, Texas, and guess who comes second? Vettel, and Alonso 3rd, Massa 4th. What can Alonso do to win? He can't. It seems like there's nothing he can do that can beat the bloody Red Bulls. And then moving on to the last race, Brazil. In Brazil, gents, Hamilton was in 1st and Hulkenberg was chasing him. I mean, the McLaren's dominated qualifying, it was ridiculous. And Hamilton was in 1st and Hulkenberg came up the inside of him. His back end spun out and he hit Lewis, who knocked off his front wheel, so he was out the race. And he, you know, he had the worst ending to his McLaren career ever. He had 3 or 4 non-finishes that season. I mean, they had the fastest car, they just... reliability issues, is unreal. But, yeah, but Jenson Button goes on to win because Hulkenberg ended up finishing 5th. Alonso did 2nd, which was the most he could do because he was never going to catch the McLarens. Massa 3rd, Webber 4th, Hulkenberg 5th, and Sebastian Vettel 6th. Sebastian Vettel needed 6th to win, I think. Yeah, 6th to win the championship if Alonso did win. Vettel would have to get... Actually, no, if Alonso won, he'd have to get 5th, I think. So, Alonso was 2nd, so he needed 6th, and... But the thing is, he was 7th, and then Michael Schumacher let him past. I mean, no one was expecting him to do that because, you know, Michael Schumacher is one of these people, you know, he wouldn't want someone to go on and beat his record because now Vettel is he's even closer to breaking Schumacher's records. I mean, Schumacher won 5 in a row: 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and 2004. He won 5 in a row, and then he won 2 prior with Benetton, and, you know, he also made Vettel only the 3rd person in history to be a triple world champion when it's 3 on the trot. I mean, Senna, you know, he probably should have had 5 or 6 on the trot, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, Vettel, he has now got 3. Only Fangio, which was 55, 56, 57 World Championships, I think. And then, obviously, I've said Schumacher, and then now Vettel. So, you know, no one's expecting Schumacher to do it, and then up front he had Hulkenberg. So if they needed to, I mean, because Schumacher's German as well, so as Vettel, so that probably helped. And also Hulkenberg is German, so he might have let Vettel through if it got to that stage, but I don't think it would have. And it's quite funny. Kimi finished 10th. Oh, it's so funny. He went wide, so going down into the last corner. So you come around like left-handed, brake, and then it's a 90-degree left up round the long left-hander to the start-finish line. But there's like a runoff area, and he went down it, and he went through like the slalom so that you slow down even more. Then he went round behind the barrier, went up, because that is like a road going up. I think that's possibly how the equipment gets in. But there was a gap, but the gap wasn't big enough for him to get through, so he had to spin around, and he lost a lot of time. Yeah, Grosjean crashed out, Hamilton crashed out, Maldonado crashed out, Perez crashed out, Senna crashed out. So yeah, and then, I mean, in the end, right, in terms of, I mean, after all, the final results were Vettel in third, because that's the end of the season. Vettel first, Alonso second, Raikkonen third, Hamilton fourth, Button fifth, Webber 6th, Massa 7th, Grosjean 8th, Rosberg 9th, Perez 10th, Hulkenberg 11th, Kobayashi 12th, Schumacher 13th, Di Resta 14th, Maldonado 15th, Senna 16th, Verne 17th, and Ricciardo 18th, and they're the only people that got points. Yeah, it was a very interesting season. I mean, 7 different drivers in the first 7 races is unlike anything we've ever seen before in the sport. And Vettel going on to win 4 in a row, getting a third and 4 in a row, then a third, and then second to clinch the title. I mean, the reason why he won is because the last, from Italy to Brazil, Vettel got non-finish, first, third, second, sixth, while Alonso did third, non-finish, third, second, third, second. So, the one thing that Alonso said correct was on the podium, they get some ex-Formula 1 driver or team boss or something to go up and speak to them. And Massa, you know, he spoke, because he was on the podium, he spoke to the crowd in his mother tongue and stuff like that. And I think it's Portuguese in Brazil. And then Alonso came to Alonso, and obviously Alonso was speaking English, even though he's Spanish. They usually speak in English up on the podium. And Alonso's speaking, and one thing he said, they win with the best car, they win with an okay car, and they're challenging for the World Championship with a bad car. So basically what he was saying was, Ferrari, no matter whether they got a good car or a bad car, they are still a good team. And I mean, let's look at Lewis. Okay, didn't finish in Germany, didn't finish in Belgium, didn't finish in Singapore, didn't finish in Abu Dhabi, didn't finish in Brazil. Jensen didn't finish in Italy, didn't finish in Korea, didn't. Oh wait, he only had 2 actually. So, I mean, like McLaren's had 7 wins, when the Red Bulls had 7 as well, but the Red Bulls had 4 non-finishes when the McLarens had 7. So yeah, it's I don't even know what the word would be for that, but in comparison, I mean, the McLarens, they had the fastest car throughout the season, and the Red Bulls had probably the 3rd or 4th fastest car. But the Red Bulls got the results. I mean, the staggering thing about Brazil as well is that Vettel finished the first lap of the race last. And I mean, in Abu Dhabi as well, I mean, not only did he start from the pit lane, he had to pit for a front nose change, so he was at the back of the grid again. Then he took a different strategy to everyone else, and you know, the safety car's played in his hands, because that seems to what happened. Because in my opinion, Vettel's not a brilliant driver. Well, he's a good driver, but I think if you put him in, say, the Sauber, he couldn't do what Perez did. If you put him in Force India, he couldn't do what Hulkenberg did, or De Resta. If you put him in a Lotus, I don't think... Actually, no, maybe a Lotus, but if you put him in a Williams, he wouldn't be able to do what Maldonado did. The thing is, Vettel, when they had a bad car, he did bad. When they had a good car, he did good. Right? That is what I'm saying. He's not a good driver. You might disagree with me, but that's my opinion. And yeah. But going on to next season, Webber's got, I think, a 1-year contract. So has Massa. Lewis has gone to Mercedes. Schumacher's retired. Kamui doesn't have a drive because Hulkenberg's gone to Sauber. And who's going in the Force India with the rest of maybe Bianchi or something? Or isn't Gutierrez or something doing it? I don't know. And then the thing is, right, going back to McLaren, Lewis basically and McLaren shot themselves in the foot. You could even say in the face, because it was that bad. Because the second that Jensen was out of the championship, Lewis said, I'm moving to Mercedes, and he signed the contract with Mercedes. So McLaren weren't then going to tell him things about the car, because next year Lewis is also taking his engineer with him to Mercedes, his race engineer. So they don't want to tell him lots of stuff, because obviously he's going to then be able to use that stuff. But the thing is, what Lewis has done, he's moved at the right time, because, you know, now Perez has got Lewis's drive, so Perez is now at McLaren, which is quite interesting. And you know, Lewis has gone at the right time, because in 2014 there's going to be engine changes to the engine size, which is going to benefit the Mercedes apparently. The Red Bulls, I mean, Vettel's going to end up taking Massa's spot with Alonso and at Ferrari, and then De Resta's probably going to get a drive at Red Bull or McLaren or something like that. And basically in the next 5 years it's going to change so much, because Webber's probably going to retire soon, Button is probably going to retire soon. You know, you got Grosjean, who's really young, coming through. Perez, who's young, coming through. De Resta's that's young, coming through. Maldonado. There's Bottas, who's taking over from Senna for next season. You know, if you don't watch Formula 1, you should watch it next season, because it's going to be maybe not the best season. No, it won't be as good as this season, because this season 7 different winners out of 7 different races. First half of the season, in fact, before, yeah, exactly. Actually, exactly. The season was 2 halves, because from Hungary from including Hungary and before, it was so inconsistent. From Belgium afterwards, it was very consistent. The Red Bulls has picked up. The McLaren's got really inconsistent, and the Ferrari just kept on getting points. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed this commentary. I mean, it's 45 minutes long. Sorry to ramble on. I don't know. Put in the comment section what you think about 2013 season, and I hope you have a good New Year, because obviously this is New Year's Eve. And yeah, I hope you enjoy that, and there will be more Formula 1 commentaries and stuff coming out soon. I've got a FIFA 13 the skill challenges. I'm going to show you every single one of them, bronze, silver and gold for all 8 of them, and yeah, things like that. That will be coming out soon, so I will see you in those videos, and I hope I kept you interested for 45 minutes, so yeah, but I'll see you soon.